The last message came at 23:47 hours. Commander Daniel Hayes stood in the Earth Defense Command Center and listened to the voice of Captain Jennifer Oakes from New Terra Station Crack under pressure. This is New Terra Control. We are under attack. Multiple hostile vessels dropping from stealth. Shields are failing. Power grid is down in sectors 3 through 7. There are fires in the residential zones. Over 400,000 people on this station. We request immediate military support. Please respond. Please respond. This is New Terra Control. Request immediate. The transmission ended. Static filled the speakers. Hayes stood frozen. His hand was still raised toward the communication panel. In the next room, every alarm system on Earth began to scream. Within the hour, the reports came flooding in. Proxima Station gone. 200,000 dead. Kepler Research Colony under enemy control. New Mars 7 attacked and burning. The Mars expansion settlements. Radio silence. One after another. The 12 human colonies scattered across the galaxy went dark or were seized by hostile forces. Dr. Marcus Webb sat in the Earth Defense Research Institute and watched the numbers appear on his screen. His hand shook as he read them. He was a scientist. He understood data. He understood statistics. But these numbers represented people. They represented children, families, entire civilizations built by human hands. The attack was coordinated. That was clear. Someone had planned this carefully. Someone had sent fleets to 12 different locations at exactly the same time. The precision meant only one thing. The most powerful forces in known space had united against humanity. At the United Nations Emergency Council in Geneva, President Lisa Duncan sat at the head of a long table. Around her sat the military leadership of Earth, the heads of the space programs, and the leaders of the major nations. General Nathan Cross stood at one end of the room, his uniform perfectly pressed, his face carved from granite. The Zephyrian Council has issued a statement, said Captain Patricia Lennox, Earth's Chief Intelligence Officer. She pulled up the transmission on the large screen. They say they condemn the attacks and are investigating the parties responsible. They condemn the attacks? General Cross's voice was hard. While they do nothing, while our people die. President Duncan raised her hand. What do we know about the attacking forces? Lennox pressed forward. The ships matched the design signatures of the Zephyrian faction. But the technology is advanced. We are still analyzing the data. What we can confirm is that no less than 8 major galactic powers were contacted before the attacks. They all said they could not intervene. The room was silent. So the entire galaxy knew this was coming, said Admiral Kevin Foster. And they did nothing. They said they could not officially act, Lennox said quietly. But they could have warned us. President Duncan stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at Earth, spinning below, unaware that 12 of humanity's greatest achievements had just been erased. Get me the names of every person in every government that was contacted before the attacks. I want to know who chose to let our people die. Across Earth, the news was spreading. The screens showed the numbers over and over. 400,000. 200,000. 150,000. More. Sarah. Mitchell sat in her apartment in New Seoul and watched the reports. Her husband was on New Terra Station. He was an engineer. He had sent her a message 3 days ago, telling her about a new water recycling system he was building. He told her it would help the colony grow. He told her he loved her and would be home in 6 months. She watched the number 400,000 appear on the screen, and she knew what it meant. She did not cry. Not yet. She simply sat in the silence and waited for the official confirmation that would never bring peace. In the command center, Hayes received a message from the president. What are our options for military response? She asked. Hayes studied his data. Earth had a fleet. Not a large one compared to the major galactic powers. They had 300 combat ships. The Zephyrians had thousands. But Hayes had never been good at accepting the limits others set for him. We need more information, he said to Lennox. We need to know who ordered this. We need to know why. And we need to know what other attacks are planned. There will be more attacks, Lennox said. It was not a question. Yes, Hayes agreed. This was only the beginning. In laboratories across Earth, scientists who had worked on classified projects for decades suddenly understood their purpose. Dr. Marcus. Webb walked into a secure facility deep underground. On the walls were blueprints. On the testbeds were weapons. Technology that most of the galaxy did not even know was possible. One project had a name. The Pathfinder Initiative. For 30 years, Earth had been secretly preparing for this moment. They had poured resources into weapon systems based on cutting-edge physics, quantum shields, adaptive AI targeting, energy weapons that operated on principles that made traditional shielding systems obsolete. They had built ships that were small but deadly. The Zephyrians did not know these weapons existed. The Krell did not know. The Empress of the Void's fleet did not know. All the major galactic powers had assumed Earth was a young species with young technology. They had made a mistake. When General Cross and President Duncan met alone in the Situation Room, the decision was unspoken between them. How long to activate Pathfinder? The President asked. 3 weeks, General Cross said. We can have the full fleet operational in 3 weeks. Do it, said President Duncan. And Marcus Webb? He's already moving the weapons research teams to the activation sites, General Cross replied. President Duncan nodded. For the first time since the attacks began, her face showed something other than shock and grief. It showed resolve. Around Earth, people gathered in the streets. Millions of them. They came with flowers and candles. They came to remember the dead. They came to mourn. A wave of emotion swept across the planet. Anger, fear, loss, desperation. And underneath it all, something else was growing. Something hard. Something that would not break. Commander Hayes stood on the observation deck of Earth's primary orbital station. He watched Earth turn slowly below him. He thought about the colonists on New Terra. He thought about the children in the Mars settlements. He thought about what the galaxy had just learned. Earth would respond. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The message went out from Earth at 6 o'clock hours the next morning. It was simple. It was direct. It was a promise. To all galactic powers, Earth acknowledges the attacks on our colonies. We are in mourning. We are also preparing our response. Stand aside. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for the last time. 23 days had passed. General Nathan Cross walked through the depths of the Rocky Mountain Defense Complex. The concrete walls were thick. The security was absolute. Few people on Earth even knew this place existed. The facility had been built in secret for 30 years. While the rest of the world celebrated humanity's first steps into space, this complex had been preparing for war. Now that preparation was about to pay off. Dr. Marcus Webb waited for him in the main hangar. Behind Webb, rows of ships stood in perfect formation. They were not like any warships the galaxy had ever seen. They were smaller than traditional capital ships. They were faster. They carried weapon systems that should not exist according to every military theory in known space. How many are operational? Cross asked. All of them, Webb said. 72 ships. Each one equipped with the full suite of systems. Quantum shielding, adaptive targeting AI, energy weapons running on zero-point extraction. They are ready to fight. Cross walked forward. He studied the nearest ship. It was a beautiful thing. Dangerous. Efficient. Everything a weapon should be. What about casualties? He asked. The systems are designed to minimize them, Webb said. But sir, we are going to war. There will be casualties on both sides. That is unavoidable. Cross nodded. He had already accepted that. He had sent his intelligence officer, Captain Patricia Lennox, to find out who had ordered the attacks. She had come back with a name. Commander Vexel of the Zephyrian Council faction. A man who had convinced others in the Council that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to expand. A man who had murdered 400,000 people to prove his point. The President wants to see you, Webb said. She has authorized the full deployment. The Pathfinder fleet is now officially operational. In the Oval Office, President Lisa Duncan and General Cross reviewed the final data. The Zephyrians would not expect an attack this soon. They would not expect it at all. They believed Earth was too weak to respond. Too young. Too small. They would learn otherwise. I want intelligence first, Cross said, before we commit the fleet. Lennox believes Vexel is coordinating more attacks. There are reports of Zephyrian ships moving toward other human settlements in the outer colonies. Can we stop them? The President asked. If we act now, Cross said. Yes, President Duncan made her decision. Authorize both operations. Intelligence gathering and military preparation. I want Vexel found. I want to know everything about his network. And I want our ships ready to deploy within 48 hours. The President then did something unexpected. She called a press conference. She did not announce the Pathfinder fleet. She did not reveal the weapon systems. Instead, she spoke to the people of Earth. Our colonies have been attacked, she said, her voice steady. Hundreds of thousands of our people are dead or missing. The galaxy has failed to protect us. The Galactic Council has condemned these attacks with words, but taken no action with force. That ends now. She paused. The world was listening. We had prepared for this moment for a long time, she continued. We did not prepare because we wanted war. We prepared because we understood that the galaxy respects strength. Earth will respond to this atrocity. We will respond with precision. We will respond with justice. And we will do it in a way that proves humanity's superiority lies not just in our weapons, but in our character. The speech was short. It was direct. It was enough. Across Earth, people understood. Humanity would fight back in military installations across the globe. Soldiers received their orders. Recruitment centers saw lines of volunteers stretching down the streets. Engineers worked through the night to prepare the remaining ships in the fleet. Scientists calculated trajectories and weapon yields. The machinery of warfare, long dormant, began to move. Sarah Mitchell joined the military. She signed the papers with a hand that did not shake. The recruiter asked her why she was enlisting. My husband was on New Terra Station, she said. I am enlisting to make sure no one else loses their family the way I did. The recruiter looked at her. He had heard this story 100 times in the past 3 weeks. Thousands of people were enlisting. Some for revenge. Some for justice. Some for remembrance. All of them were united by one thing. They wanted the galaxy to know that humanity was not weak in intelligence headquarters. Captain Patricia Lennox coordinated a global effort to gather information. Teams of agents, hackers, and analysts worked around the clock. They contacted sources in every major power in the galaxy. They bribed officials. They intercepted communications. They pieced together a picture of conspiracy. Vexel had built a coalition. It included extremists from the Zephyrian Council, rogue military officers from 3 different species, and a faction of the Krell Empire that saw humanity as a threat to their expansion plans. Together, they had planned simultaneous attacks. Together, they had tried to erase humanity from known space, but they had underestimated something important. They had underestimated human resilience. They had underestimated human anger. And most importantly, they had underestimated the weapons that Earth had prepared in secret. The intelligence reports reached General Cross at 4:30 in the morning. Vexel was coordinating his next attack from a command station in Sector 7. The station was heavily defended, but it was vulnerable. With the right approach, with superior weapons and tactical superiority, it could be taken. Cross met with Commander Daniel Hayes. Hayes had been selected to lead the strike. He was the best tactical mind in the Earth military. He had studied every battle in human history. He understood how to defeat larger forces through superior strategy and courage. The Zephyrians will not expect this, Hayes said, studying the intelligence reports. They think we are still analyzing what happened. They think we are grieving. We are grieving, Cross said. But we are also fighting. This is who we are. We survive. We adapt. We do not surrender. Hayes nodded. He understood. The Pathfinder fleet was moved to the launch staging area. Each ship was inspected. Each weapon system was tested. Each crew member was briefed. Dr. Webb was present for every test. His creations were about to be used for the first time in actual combat. He felt the weight of that responsibility in the fleet's central command ship. Commander Hayes reviewed the battle plan one final time. His officers stood around the tactical table. They studied the three-dimensional map of Vexel's command station. They studied the approach vectors. They studied the defensive positions. They have superior numbers, Hayes said. But we have superior technology. They have more guns. We have better guns. They have more ships. We have faster ships. They have experienced fighting species with primitive weapons. We have experience fighting each other. He looked at each of his officers. When we launch, we will be outnumbered 4-1, he continued. But the Zephyrians do not know what we are capable of. They will make mistakes based on their assumptions. We will not make those mistakes. We will be precise. We will be efficient. And we will win. One of his officers raised a concern. What about civilian casualties at the station? Hayes did not hesitate. Minimal. We do not target civilian sectors. We do not kill unnecessarily. We are human. We are better than that. We will win this battle without becoming the enemy. The night before launch, Sarah Mitchell stood with the other new recruits. They were being loaded onto transport ships that would take them to the fleet. She thought about her husband. She thought about what the next few days might bring. She was not afraid. She was determined. The Pathfinder fleet moved into position. 72 ships. The most advanced military hardware Earth had ever created. Commanded by the best tactical officer the planet had produced. Armed with weapons that could reshape the galaxy at 6 o'clock hours. General Cross received the final report from Commander Hayes. The fleet is ready, Hayes transmitted. We are standing by for authorization to proceed. General Cross looked at President Duncan through the secure video link. Do it, she said. Hayes received the transmission and smiled. Finally, after all the preparation, after all the waiting, Earth was about to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. All ships, he commanded. Engage stealth protocols. Set course for Sector 7. Weapons ready. Shields charged. We go to war. The Pathfinder fleet disengaged from the staging station and moved toward the darkness of space. Behind them, Earth watched. The waiting was over. The reckoning was beginning. The intelligence reports arrived at Earth Defense Command at 14:23 hours. Captain Patricia Lennox entered General Cross's office with data that changed everything. We have confirmation, she said. Commander Vexel gave the final orders for the attacks. But this was not just political. He was afraid. Intelligence intercepts showed that the Zephyrian Council had data showing that humanity's technological development was accelerating. Within 5 to 10 years, Earth would have been able to challenge their military dominance. Cross studied the reports. They launched a genocide to prevent competition. Exactly, Lennox said. Vexel convinced the hardliners that humanity had to be eliminated before we became too strong. He sold them on the idea that this was prevention, not murder. And the larger council? Cross asked. Silent, Lennox said. The major galactic powers condemned the attacks publicly. But privately, some of them supported Vexel's goal. They wanted humanity removed from the galactic stage. They just did not want to do it themselves. Cross felt cold anger settle into his chest. So the galaxy chooses not to see genocide when it suits them. They have never had to pay for that choice before, Lennox said. No species has ever responded hard enough to make them pay. That changes now, Cross said. He called President Duncan immediately. Within an hour, a new war council convened. The decision was simple. Vexel would be the first target. His command station. His fleet. His operations center. Earth would strike there first, and they would do it with overwhelming force. But there was debate about strategy. Some generals wanted total destruction. They wanted to leave nothing of the Zephyrians but ashes and memory. They wanted humanity to send a message that could not be ignored. No, Commander Hayes said from the secure video link. The Pathfinder fleet was now 12 hours from the Zephyrian sector. We are not going to commit genocide in response to genocide. We respond to the attack. We stop the threat. We capture Vexel for trial. But we do not erase an entire species because some of their leaders chose evil. General Cross respected this. Hayes was the man who would fight the battle. His judgment mattered. Why? One of the generals demanded. Why should we show mercy to a species that tried to destroy us? Because we are human, Hayes said simply. Because if we become what we are fighting against, then we have already lost. The galaxy needs to see that humanity's strength lies not just in weapons, but in principle. The debate continued, but Hayes had made his position clear. He would command this battle, and he would not commit massacre under the banner of justice. In the Zephyrian sector, Commander Vexel received reports that alarmed him. Unidentified energy signatures were approaching. A fleet was on approach vectors from the human territory. But that was impossible. Humans did not have a fleet capable of threatening his position. Humans had been eliminated. Unless Vex all called an emergency meeting with his senior commanders. Bring all defensive forces to full alert. These are not human ships. Humans do not have the technology for stealth operations at this distance. This is some other power moving against us. But he was wrong. As he issued the order, his communication systems were being jammed by techniques he did not understand. His sensors, which were based on old technology, could not detect the Pathfinder fleet. The ships approached unseen, like ghosts moving through space. Dr. Marcus Webb monitored the approach from Earth. He watched as the quantum shield systems powered up in preparation for defensive fire. He watched as the targeting AI systems came online. His creations were about to prove themselves. 3 minutes to engagement range. A technician reported. In the Pathfinder fleet's command ship. Commander Hayes stood at the tactical display. The 3D map showed the Zephyrian station. It showed the defensive positions. It showed the approaching enemy reinforcements. Everything was happening as he expected. All ships, this is command, he transmitted. We go hot in 60 seconds. Weapons charged. Shields raised. Remember your training. Remember why we are here. We fight for the people we lost. We fight for the people we will save. Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do. The Response came back from every ship. Acknowledgements, confidence, readiness. The Zephyrians finally detected them when the Pathfinder fleet dropped stealth at 30,000 kilometers. The sensors screamed with warnings. Unidentified ships. Multiple contacts. Weapons charging. Impossible, Vexel breathed. How did they? But there was no time for answers. The first volley of human weapons fire reached the station's outer defensive platforms. The Zephyrians used energy weapons. They fired bolts of pure plasma and quantum energy at their enemies. It was technology that had proven effective against every other species in known space. It should have torn through the human ships like they were made of paper. Instead, the quantum shields absorbed the energy. They took the incoming fire and converted it. The shields did not just defend. They adapted. They learned. With each shot fired at them, they became more efficient at stopping the next one. The human ships returned fire. Their weapons were precise, surgical. They targeted the defensive platforms one by one. The shields on those platforms could not adapt fast enough. Technology that had seemed invulnerable began to fail. Vexel's fleet scrambled to respond. They had numbers. The Zephyrians sent 300 ships against a human fleet of 72. It should have been a slaughter. 300 against 72. The mathematics were simple, but mathematics did not account for the tactical genius of Commander Hayes. His fleet moved with perfect coordination. While part of the fleet engaged Vexel's main force, another part slipped around the flank. The human ships were faster. They were more maneuverable. They struck targets the Zephyrians had not even known were vulnerable. For the first time in galactic history, a smaller force was systematically dismantling a larger one. Through pure superior tactics and technology, Hayes pressed the attack. He did not give the Zephyrians time to organize a coherent response. He kept them off balance. He hit them where they were weak. He protected his ships where they were strong. The space around the command station became chaos. Zephyrian ships burned. Their defensive systems failed. But Hayes ordered his ships not to target civilian sections. The order was absolute. Military targets only. Defensive platforms only. Command structures only. This is not genocide, he transmitted to every ship in his fleet. This is war. And in this war, we remember who we are. In the command station, Vexel watched his forces collapse. The humans were too fast, too efficient. His weapons did not work against their shields. His tactics did not work against their speed. Every assumption he had made about human warfare was proving wrong. All ships, retreat, he ordered. Fall back to defensive positions. But the order came too late. The human fleet was already in position to intercept his retreat routes. Vexel's forces were herded into a killing zone. Ships exploded. Officers died. The fleet that had seemed invulnerable only hours before was being systematically destroyed. Hayes watched the battle unfold. He felt no joy in this. War was necessary. Killing was necessary. But it was also terrible. When it was over, people would still be dead. Families would still be destroyed. Homes would still be empty. But it had to be done. Otherwise, the Zephyrians would attack again. They would attack and attack until humanity was extinct. This battle was the only way to stop that. Target the command station's main reactor, Hayes ordered. Disable it. But do not destroy the station. We need prisoners. We need Vexel. The order was executed with precision. A human ship moved in close, its weapons firing with calculated accuracy. The main reactor of the command station went dark. Life support systems switched to backup. The station was crippled but intact. Vexel's final transmission came across the human communication systems. It was broadcast to every frequency, to every receiver in known space. "You have proven yourselves warriors," Vexel said, "but warriors of a dying species. Your victory here means nothing. The rest of the galaxy will unite against you. You will be crushed. You will be..." The transmission ended. Commander Hayes had ordered it cut. "Capture teams are deploying," his tactical officer reported. "Moving to secure the command station. Vexel's location is confirmed. We have him." Hayes nodded. The battle was over. But the real challenge was just beginning. As the Pathfinder fleet secured the Zephyrian sector, messages began arriving at Earth. The message was simple. It came from every major galactic power, every species, every government. They had been watching. They had seen the human fleet destroy the Zephyrian defenses. They had seen technology that should not exist. They had seen a force that was not just competitive but dominant. The galaxy was afraid. And fear, Hayes knew, was the foundation of respect. He had one message for the galaxy, broadcast on all channels. To all species, to all governments, Earth has responded to the genocide of our colonists. Commander Vexel will stand trial for crimes against humanity. Any species that chose to support this attack should know that you will be held accountable. But for those willing to coexist peacefully, Earth offers friendship. The choice is yours. The message was received in silence. For the first time in 1,000 years, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and it has shifted toward Earth. In the ruins of the command station, Vexel sat in a detention cell. Commander Hayes came to see him. Vexel laughed bitterly when the Pathfinder fleet emerged from stealth at exactly 9:47 hours. Commander Hayes watched the tactical display as every ship appeared on the Zephyrian sensors simultaneously. There was no element of surprise anymore. Now it was a matter of military skill and firepower. "All ships engage defensive formations," Hayes commanded. "Hold position. Let them come to us." The Zephyrian station had massive defensive batteries. Hundreds of guns aimed at space to protect against attacks. Those guns opened fire as soon as the human fleet became visible. Waves of plasma bolts streaked across the void. The energy discharge was enough to destroy entire cities. The human ships activated their quantum shields. The shields came online as a network. They did not defend individual ships. They defended the entire fleet. The Zephyrian attack hit this collective shield and simply stopped. The energy was absorbed. It was converted. It was redirected safely into the surrounding space. The Zephyrian commanders saw their weapons do no damage. They increased the power. They fired more bolts, more energy, more force. And still the human shields held. "It is not possible," the Zephyrian commander said. He had served in the military for 40 years. He had never seen defensive technology that could simply negate his weapons. Hayes made his next move. While the Zephyrian defenses were focused on the main human fleet, a secondary force moved in from the dark side of the station. These were human hunter-killer ships, smaller, faster, carrying precision weapons. They hit the defensive platforms with laser fire so accurate it seemed impossible. Platform after platform went dark. The Zephyrians tried to turn their guns toward this new threat, but the human ships were too fast. By the time the guns rotated, the targets were gone. The main human fleet moved forward. They used their superior speed to move around the Zephyrian position. The bigger ships of the Zephyrian fleet tried to intercept, but they could not keep pace. They were built for endurance. The human ships were built for war. Hayes coordinated the battle like a chess master. Every move had a purpose. Every ship had a target. The Zephyrians were skilled fighters, but they were being outmaneuvered at every turn. The space around the station became filled with fire and destruction. Zephyrian ships exploded under human weapons fire. The human weapons based on principles the Zephyrians did not understand, found weaknesses in the Zephyrian armor that conventional weapons could never exploit. The shields that had protected Zephyrian ships for centuries became useless against the human assault dot in the command station. Vexel watched his fleet die. For 30 years, he had commanded this station. He had commanded this sector. He had considered himself one of the greatest military minds in the galaxy. He had convinced an entire council of politicians that humanity had to be destroyed. Now humanity was destroying him. "Sir, we are losing ships," his tactical officer reported. 17 capital ships down. 43 fighters destroyed. Our defensive batteries are being picked off one by one. We are losing this battle. Vexel's face turned cold. He made a decision. Launch all remaining fighters. All of them. I want to bleed them. Even if we lose, I want them to pay. The order was given. The Zephyrian fighters launched in a massive wave. Hundreds of them. They screamed toward the human fleet in a desperate attempt to overwhelm the human defenses through sheer numbers. Hayes saw the attack coming. All ships, close ranks. Activate point defense systems. We will not lose anyone to this attack. The human ships tightened their formation. Their defensive systems, powered by advanced AI that could calculate trajectories faster than any biological mind, came online. The AI systems tracked hundreds of targets simultaneously. They predicted flight paths. They identified threats. The human weapons opened fire on the Zephyrian fighters. The accuracy was perfect. The Zephyrian fighters died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. They were fast, but the human AI was faster. They were maneuverable, but the human weapons were more accurate. The kamikaze attack lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, 312 Zephyrian fighters had been destroyed. Exactly 2 human fighters had been damaged, though not destroyed. The human medical teams had already saved both pilots. Vexel's face crumbled. His entire defensive strategy had been shattered. He had thrown his best force at the humans, and they had not even slowed down. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "we need to consider surrender." "No," Vexel said. His voice was hard, angry, desperate. "We will fight to the last ship. We will fight until every human in this sector is dead." But the tactical officer's suggestion had been heard by the crew. The crew was looking at the data. The crew understood mathematics. They were losing at a rate of 10 to 1. They could not win. They could only die. Hayes continued to press his advantage. He moved the main fleet closer to the station. The secondary forces were now engaging the last of the Zephyrian ships directly. It was no longer a battle. It was a slaughter. But Hayes maintained his discipline. "All ships, remember your rules of engagement. We target military threats only. We do not engage civilian sectors. We do not fire on medical facilities. We are human. We fight with honor." The human forces moved with precision. They disabled each Zephyrian ship rather than destroying them when possible. They captured military personnel. They took prisoners. They showed restraint even in the moment of victory. The Zephyrian commander on the station made his final decision. He opened a channel to his remaining ships. "All units, this is command. We are retreating. This battle is lost. All ships, disengage and jump to faster than light speeds. Repeat, all ships, retreat immediately." The remaining Zephyrian vessels did not hesitate. They jumped to hyperspace and disappeared. The commander had kept a card in reserve. A hidden fleet positioned at the edge of the system. Now that fleet was their only hope. Hayes saw the Zephyrian flagship break for open space. He could have stopped it. He could have disabled its engines and captured Vexel himself. But he did not. Instead, he gave an order. "Let them go," he said. His tactical officer was shocked. "Sir, we have them. We can capture Vexel right now." No, Hayes said. If we trap him here in his own station, he will never surrender. He will fight to the death. People will die. He is trying to escape. Let him try. The station is not going anywhere. Hayes moved his fleet to surround the command station. The Zephyrian flagship tried to run, but it quickly became clear that the human ships were faster. They cut off the escape routes. They forced the ship back toward the station. Vexel's final transmission was broadcast across all frequencies. It was a message meant to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. Humans, he said, you have won this battle, but you have made enemies of the entire galaxy. Species that fear what you represent. Powers that will unite against you. Your victory here is meaningless. Your kind will be extinct within a generation. This is my promise to you. Hayes listened to the transmission. He had expected this kind of defiance. Men like Vexel did not accept defeat easily. But Hayes was patient. He knew that Vexel's threats meant nothing now. The battle had decided what truly mattered. Earth was not weak. The capture teams moved in. They surrounded the command station. They breached the reactor chamber and worked their way toward Vexel's location. He was found in the central command room, surrounded by his personal guards. The guards put up a fight. They were well-trained and heavily armed. But the human teams had better equipment and superior tactics. The fight lasted 47 seconds. When it was over, the guards were neutralized. Vexel was on his knees, hands bound behind his back. Commander Hayes came to see him personally. When Vexel looked up, he saw a face that showed no anger, no hatred, just cold professionalism. Commander Vexel, Hayes said, you are a prisoner of Earth. You will be transported to a secure facility for trial. You will face justice for the genocide of 400,000 human civilians. Do you understand? Vexel spat. I understand that you are an animal playing with weapons. It does not understand. Hayes did not react. He simply gestured to the guards, and they took Vexel away. The battle was over. The Pathfinder fleet had won a total victory. 32 Zephyrian capital ships were destroyed. 170 fighters were destroyed. The command station was captured intact with 90% of its systems operational. Casualties among the human fleet were minimal. Away were minimal. 12 ships damaged. No ships destroyed. 47 personnel killed in action. Dr. Marcus Webb received the final report and felt the weight of his creation. 47 people would not see Earth again. 47 families would receive death notices. 47 chairs at dinner tables would remain empty. But 400,000 families would not have to receive those notices. The Zephyrians would not be allowed to continue their genocide. The attack had been stopped. The threat had been eliminated. It was the mathematics of war. Terrible, but necessary. President Duncan received the news in the Oval Office. She sat in silence for a long moment. General Cross waited for her reaction. Tell the families of those who died that their sacrifice saved the human race, she said finally. Tell the people of Earth that we have won. We have proven that we can defend ourselves. She paused. And tell Commander Hayes that I want Vexel alive and prepared for trial. I want the entire galaxy to watch as we prosecute him for crimes against humanity. I want them to understand that we do not. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when Earth's ambassador entered. Ambassador Kevin Cross was the brother of General Nathan Cross. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who represented a power that the Council could no longer dismiss. For 3 weeks, he had waited for this moment. 3 weeks while the Zephyrian forces regrouped. 3 weeks while negotiations were conducted in secret. 3 weeks while the other species of the galaxy tried to understand what had just happened. A smaller force had defeated a larger force. New technology had overmatched ancient technology. And humanity, the species that everyone had assumed would be contained and controlled, had proven itself to be a threat. Ambassador Cross, the Zephyrian representative said. He was not Vexel. Vexel was in a detention facility on Earth, awaiting trial. This was a younger politician, trying to salvage what remained of Zephyrian power. I represent Earth, Kevin Cross said. His voice was calm and clear. I come to present the terms of our settlement. The council waited. They expected demands for territory. They expected demands for resources. They expected humanity to claim everything that Vexel had tried to take from them. First, Cross said, the Zephyrian faction that attacked our colonies will face trial in Earth courts. Commander Vessel will be prosecuted for genocide. Other members of the conspiracy will face justice. This is not negotiable. The Zephyrian representative tried to speak, but Cross continued. Second, Earth's colonies are protected under the charter of this council. We have the right to establish settlements in unclaimed space. This right was already granted. We expect it to be honored. Any attack on human settlements will be considered an act of war against Earth. And as has been demonstrated, war with Earth does not end well for our enemies. He paused and looked at each council member. Third, Earth demands recognition as a full spacefaring civilization with all rights and protections that status provides. We are not a young species to be managed and contained. We are a power. You will acknowledge this. The Krell representative stood up. You demand much, human. The Zephyrians are a proud species with a long history. For you to speak to them this way is an insult. The Zephyrians insulted us by attempting to destroy us, Cross said simply. I suggest you be careful about making threats on their behalf. Earth's military is not occupied with the Zephyrian sector anymore. If you would like to discover what 400 of our fastest ships can do to your territories, I encourage you to try. The threat was stated without emotion. That was what made it real. The Empress of the Void, who ruled through a council of appointed officials, made a decision. She transmitted her vote, support for Earth's demands. The Krell were powerful, but they were pragmatic. They had just seen what humanity was capable of. There was no advantage in picking a fight with them. The other species voted one by one. The Trankai, who controlled vast regions of space, voted for Earth's demands. The Synthetic Collective voted for them. Even some Zephyrian sympathizers voted for them. By the time the votes were counted, Earth's demands had passed with overwhelming support. Kevin Cross left the council chamber knowing that everything had changed. Humanity had demanded respect, and the galaxy had been forced to give it. On Earth, the first trial of Commander Vexel began. The proceedings were broadcast to every corner of human space and to many corners of the galaxy. People watched as the evidence was presented. Evidence of the conspiracy. Evidence of the genocide. Evidence that Vexel had ordered the simultaneous attacks knowing that they would kill hundreds of thousands. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty of crimes against humanity. Guilty of genocide. Guilty of conspiracy. The sentence was life imprisonment. Vexel would spend the remainder of his life in a cell on Earth, unable to command, unable to inspire, unable to threaten anyone ever again. When the verdict was announced, Sarah Mitchell watched the proceedings from her apartment. She had not remarried. She had not found peace. But she had found something else. She had found purpose. She had joined the military to honor her husband's memory. Now she was one of the few survivors of the initial attack who had become a decorated soldier. She had served in the Zephyrian sector. She had watched the trial. And now she was volunteering to return to the outer colonies to help rebuild what had been lost at the ceremony where she received her promotion to captain. She thought about her husband. She thought about what he would have done if he had survived. She thought about what the future held for their daughter, who had been born 6 months after his death. Her daughter had a father she would never know except through stories. But she would grow up in a galaxy where humans were respected, where humans were not weak, where humans defended their own. General Nathan Cross met with Commander Hayes after the trial ended. The two men sat in a private office in the Pentagon, away from the cameras and the public. "You saved the human race," Cross said. "Do you understand that?" "I understand the responsibility," Hayes replied. "I understand the cost. 47 soldiers dead, 312 fighters destroyed. And that is just the military cost. The emotional cost is much higher. But we won," Cross said. "More importantly, we won in a way that preserved our humanity. You could have destroyed them. You could have committed genocide in response to genocide. Instead, you showed restraint. Because we are better than that," Hayes said. "Because if we did that, we would have become the enemy. The galaxy would have been right to fear us." Dr. Marcus Webb was awarded the highest scientific honor Earth could give. He received it in a ceremony attended by the president and the world's leaders. But he took no satisfaction from it. He had built weapons that had killed people. Yes, those weapons had stopped a genocide, but they had also taken lives. He made a decision that surprised many people. He refused to continue weapons development. Instead, he turned his efforts to medical technology. He wanted to save lives instead of taking them. His quantum shielding technology was adapted for use in hospitals. His AI systems were repurposed for diagnostic and treatment applications. "I created the weapons that won the war," he said in an interview. "Now I want to create the tools that win the peace. War should be the last resort, not the first choice. Our job now is to make sure Earth never has to fight like this again." In the outer colonies, reconstruction began. The survivors of the attacks were determined to rebuild what had been lost. New Terra Station was repaired and reopened. Proxima Colony was re-established. The Mars settlements expanded, but they were different now. They were fortified. They had military protection. They would never be as vulnerable as they had been before. The galaxy settled into an uneasy peace. The Zephyrians still had power, but their power was diminished. Other species began to recalculate their relationships with humanity. Trade increased. Communication became more frequent. But everyone understood one simple fact: humanity would defend itself. Humanity was not to be trifled with. Humanity was a force in galactic affairs now, not a curiosity. President Lisa Duncan sat in the Oval Office 6 months after the trial. She had just received a message from the Empress of the Void. The message was formal but respectful. It was an invitation to participate in the next summit of major galactic powers. It was recognition that Earth was now seated at the table with the greatest powers in known space. She showed the message to General Cross. "What do you think this means?" "It means we won," he said. "Not just the war, but the peace after it. The galaxy understands now that humanity cannot be conquered. But more importantly, they understand that humanity's strength lies in its principles as much as in its weapons." The president nodded. She thought about the 400,000 people who had died. She thought about the families that had been destroyed. She thought about the cost of this victory, but she also thought about the future. A future where humanity stood as equals with the greatest powers in the galaxy. A future where human children could grow up knowing that their species would be protected. A future where humanity would never again be hunted or threatened with extinction. It had been a terrible price to pay for that future. But it had been worth it. In a cell on Earth, Commander Vexel sat in darkness. He had been offered the chance to receive visitors, but he had refused. He had nothing to say to anyone. He had tried to prevent humanity's rise, and he had failed. He had tried to commit genocide, and he had been stopped. He had tried to conquer, and he had been conquered. He had become a symbol of what happens when you underestimate the will of a species to survive. But Commander Hayes never visited him. He had no interest in seeing the man who had ordered the genocide. Instead, he focused on his new assignment. He was being promoted to admiral. He would command Earth's primary fleet. He would be responsible for protecting human space and ensuring that what had happened to the colonies would never happen again. On his first day as admiral, Hayes walked through the hangar of the Pathfinder fleet. The ships were being maintained and upgraded. They were being prepared for a new mission. Not war, but exploration. Not conquest, but discovery. Admiral Hayes, a technician said, the new quantum shield upgrades are complete. The fleet is ready for deep space exploration. We can reach the Andromeda Galaxy within 6 months if you authorize the jump. Hayes smiled. This was what he wanted.